So this is my Dusty Origins video. I recently visited my childhood home and I brought with me my camera. So this is where I grew up, South Dakota. This tiny house here is where I spent my entire childhood. I didn't have any idea of the story that I was going to try to tell. I just knew that this place was significant to me and I wanted to share where I came from. I hit record and I began talking. I really never come out here anymore because, as you can see, this place has really come down. So this house has become a place of local legends. It's a ghost story. High school kids turned vandals come out here because they need a place to party. They need a free thrill. And as a result, they transformed my home. As far as you can see out that way is our farm. As far as you can see out that way, and as far as you can see out that way. Really, this is just an annex of a larger farm that's up the road, the Duprell Homestead. It's just, I think, around 3,000 acres. Great-great-grandpa, great-grandpa, grandpa. So yeah, I would be the 5th generation Duprell, and it all began a very long time ago during the Homestead Act, where people had a chance to come to America and was at a time where they were actually given land to farm, to develop, to make something of not only the land and the country, but of themselves. And it's funny to think about where we're at now politically. So farming didn't really take into my blood like it did my brother's. I don't know, it's just weird to come back out here after all this time and think about where I came from. But it still holds a kind of magic, a nostalgia that just has a way to bring the past forward. I instantly have this connection to a time and a world that shaped me. Scattered memories of my childhood feel as if they happened yesterday. Right here, this gate. I remember me, my brother, and my dad put it in. Even though it's falling over, it's still there. And the significance of this were on the tip of my tongue, just right outside the grasp of my words. With both my brother and my father gone, this gate is the perseverance of a moment in time. And I realize there are very few examples like this still holding on outside of my memory. Wonder if I'm doing all that I can do with my life. I always want to do more. As I'm being hard on myself, or I'm wanting more out of life, or I'm not thinking I'm fulfilling my full potential. It's nice to come here and think hey, this is where I started. I think about where I'm at now. Think about how much of the world I've seen, how many things I've done. Even though I'm not content where I'm at and I want to push further, I recognize just looking around here that I've came a pretty long ways. And I think this is really where my imagination grew, my creativity. Because you think about how the heck did I entertain myself here? I mean, growing up, we only had 2 channels, NBC, ABC, and we spent every day outside. And growing up here, sometimes my boredom was met with a complete lack of imagination. I was building different hay forts, climbing that tree behind me. Trees on either side of the house. Spent hours down there climbing trees, basically a lot of climbing trees. Then other times, my imagination would kick in and I would come up with all kinds of different adventures. That tractor always was there, sat there forever. And I would pretend that was kind of my spaceship. And I would imagine going on adventures, flying through space to different planets. The stories I created that did use my imagination, I would say that they have a central thesis or theme, and that would be to escape. I never really thought about it till right now, actually, but a lot of the things I did here was to kind of escape, including running away a couple times. I dreamt of a world beyond this farm, and trying to picture that outside world and a younger version of myself was driven to create a world more exciting than the one he lived in. I think that drive is what inevitably left me to leaving the farm. That chute right there, we spent like countless times just like running and jumping and trying to see how far I could jump. I liked the idea of like one day running and jumping and like my feet not touching the ground and just flying off. I gotta pee real quick. That's like another thing, just like have to pee. Peeing right now. Nobody cares. Forget like how quiet it is out here. Where that tree, I fell out of the tree, hit like every branch on my armpits on the way down, and for the longest time I thought that's how I got armpits and that I was the only person in the world that had armpits. Right there, a horse kicked me in the side of the head. Over there by the burn barrels, I literally started my face on fire. For like the longest time, I started to think that like I was invincible. Down there, Spot, my best friend, my dog, is buried. It's just a sad story in itself. So you imagine growing up here. There was very few pieces available to me as a child that could really paint the outside world. It was a pre-internet time. We had like a set of encyclopedias, and that was like kind of like my glimpse to the outside world. We had a VHS player and we would just watch movies a lot. And this was like when you go to the local video store and they didn't even have fancy art cover on the DVDs. They were all just gray boxes with pieces of white paper that had typed out names of the movie. It's from those movies like I started to get a sense of like the outside world. I always desired for forging the most out of my life. Even as a child, I dreamt of a world beyond this farm. And trying to picture that outside world, it was constructed with pure imagination. And it was a world that I dreamt to fly into